A priest stands in his room. He's laughing. The holy man who exposed his mediocrity is finally gone. Victory at last. But then the ceiling begins to crack. This is the true story of Florentius, a man of God who became a murderer, a priest so consumed by envy that he tried to poison Saint Benedict with a loaf of bread. And what happened next reveals one of the most chilling truths about jealousy that most people never realize until it's too late. Because here's what nobody tells you about envy. It doesn't just destroy the person you're jealous of. It destroys you from the inside out. And Florentius, he learned that lesson in the most terrifying way possible. It's the early 6th century in central Italy. And there's a problem spreading through the region, a problem that's making certain people very, very uncomfortable. What's the problem? Holiness. Saint Benedict had built a monastery at Subiaco, and his reputation was exploding. People were abandoning their comfortable lives, their wealth, their worldly ambitions, and flocking to him. Not because he had money, not because he promised them power, but because he showed them something real. Now, nearby, there was a priest named Florentius. He had his own church, his own position, but something was eating at him. Every convert that went to Benedict felt like a personal attack. Every story of Benedict's wisdom felt like an accusation. Every miracle felt like a comparison Florentius was losing. The historical record, preserved by Pope Gregory the Great, tells us exactly what was happening. He desired himself the commendations of Benedict's life, but would not live commendably. Read that again. He wanted the praise, he wanted the reputation, he wanted the honor, but he refused to do the work. He refused to change. He refused to become the kind of person who deserved it. So Florentius did what envious people have done throughout all of history. He couldn't elevate himself, so he tried to tear Benedict down. He spread rumors. He discouraged people from visiting the monastery. He did everything he could to stop Benedict's influence. But it didn't work. Benedict's fame only grew. And here's the first brutal truth about envy. Attacking someone else's success never creates your own. It just proves you don't deserve it. But Florentius wasn't done. When slander failed, he decided to try something far more sinister. There's something deeply disturbing about poison. It's the weapon of cowards. It hides in gifts. It masquerades as generosity. It kills with a smile. Florentius baked a loaf of bread. He laced it with poison, and then, this is the sickening part, he sent it to Benedict as a religious offering, as a gift from one man of God to another. The messenger arrived at Benedict's monastery. Benedict received the loaf, thankfully, the record tells us. But here's what's haunting. He knew. He knew it was poisoned. He could have confronted Florentius. He could have exposed him. He could have protected himself by turning the priest over to the authorities. But he didn't. Instead, at dinner time, a crow came. This crow had been coming daily, taking bread from Benedict's hand. It was their routine, but today would be different. Benedict placed the poisoned loaf before the bird and said, "In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, take this bread and cast it in some place where no man may find it." The crow freaked out. It hopped around the bread, spread its wings, made distressed sounds. The medieval account says it was as though she would have said, "I would willingly fulfill thy command, but I am not able." Benedict repeated, take it up, and cast it where no man may find it." Finally, the crow obeyed. It took the poisoned bread in its beak and flew away. 3 hours later, it returned for its normal meal. Mission accomplished. The poison was gone. No one would ever find it. Think about Benedict's reaction. He didn't panic. He didn't retaliate. He didn't seem angry. The source tells us he was more sorry for Florentius than grieved for himself. While his enemy was trying to murder him, Benedict was feeling compassion for him.
That's not weakness. That's spiritual power so profound it's almost incomprehensible. But the story wasn't over, because when envy doesn't succeed through violence, it tries seduction. Florentius had failed to kill Benedict's body, so he decided to go after something more precious, his disciples' souls.
The priest sent 7 women into the monastery garden. Their instructions? Play, dance, entice the young monks away from their vows. Benedict saw them from his cell window, and in that moment he realized something crucial. This persecution wasn't really about him. It was about destroying his disciples. Florentius couldn't beat Benedict, so he was trying to corrupt everyone around him. So Benedict made a decision that must have been agonizing. He packed his things, he appointed leaders for the monasteries he'd built, and he left. He gave place to envy, the text says. He walked away from everything he'd built, because protecting his young monks from spiritual corruption was more important than his own reputation or comfort. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Benedict could have stayed and thought. He could have exposed Florentius publicly. He could have turned it into a battle of egos. Instead, he just left. And when Florentius heard that Benedict was gone, he thought he'd finally won. Florentius stood in his summer house. Benedict had traveled less than 10 miles, but to the priest it felt like total victory. The holy man was gone. The threat to his ego was gone. He could go back to being mediocre and peace. He was celebrating. And then the ceiling started to crack. The room he was standing in collapsed. The structure came down directly on him, and Florentius, the priest who tried to poison a saint, was crushed to death. Here's what's chilling. The rest of the house remained perfectly intact, not a scratch, just the room where Florentius stood, just him. Benedict's disciple Maurus heard the news and ran to tell him. He was excited. "Return! The priest who persecuted you is dead." But Benedict's reaction stunned everyone. He didn't celebrate. He didn't say justice is served. He didn't feel vindicated. He mourned. He wept for his enemy, and then he did something even more surprising. He gave Maurus a penance for rejoicing at another man's death, even the death of someone who tried to kill him. 2 men, one consumed by envy, one overflowing with compassion, one trying to destroy, one trying to save, even trying to save his own murderer. And in the end, Florentius wasn't destroyed by Benedict. He was destroyed by his own envy. The hatred he cultivated, the poison he brewed, it didn't kill Benedict, it killed him. The ancient writer of Proverbs was right. Envy rots the bones. Benedict went on to found Monte Cassino, one of the most influential monasteries in Christian history. His rule shaped Western monasticism for over 1,500 years. His legacy touched millions of lives. Florentius? History barely remembers his name. He's known for only one thing, being the man who tried to poison Saint Benedict and failed. But here's why this story matters today. Because envy is still here. It's still whispering. It's still rotting bones from the inside out. Every time you see someone else's success and feel that burning resentment, every time you want the results without doing the work, every time you're tempted to tear someone down instead of building yourself up, that's Florentius. That's the poisoned bread. That's the collapsing ceiling. Benedict shows us the other way, the humble way, the way that says, their success doesn't diminish me, their calling doesn't threaten mine, their gifts don't take away from mine, and, maybe most importantly, when people try to poison you with their envy, you don't have to drink it.
You don't have to retaliate. You can simply walk away and let God handle the rest.
If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to see it. Hit that like button to help us spread the word, and subscribe because we're diving deeper into the forgotten treasures of our faith that could change your eternity.